Now it appears that the judiciary is the latest institution to be captured by the Maoists. The Sentencing Council, presided over by the new uber-woke Lord Chief Justice Baroness Carr of Walton-on-the-Hill, has given our judges a new checklist, setting out a number of mitigations for offenders from disadvantaged backgrounds. Factors such as alcoholism, drug addiction, insecure housing, and criminal relatives could all be reasons that offenders are given softer sentences. Now, there's no doubt that some people in society have difficult backgrounds and starts in life. However, there is equally no doubt that people who live in deprived communities are disproportionately at risk from crime. Giving offenders softer sentences based on socio-economic factors is an insult to law-abiding people from all sectors of society. It's another example of the woke bigotry of low expectations, and it creates a two-tier justice system. I'm joined now by my most intellectual panel, GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, and the former Tory MP and Conservative commentator and gazetted peer, Paul Goodman. Well, my lord, as I can now properly address you.
Sir Jacob,
Thank you.
Will be in due course.
I'm the only one here without a title.
No, I've forgotten. Yes, anyway, the formality is very impressive. This seems to me to be undermining the basic principle that we are all equal under the law.
I think Nigel will say when you come to him that you've got to delve a bit into this report and to try to make sense of it in full. What struck me about it was that Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, who's not really a raving rightist, I mean, he's very much someone on the sort of so-called moderate end of the Conservative Party, was concerned about the guidelines and thought that they pointed in the direction that you're describing.
I think that's very important because Alex Chalk, as Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary, is not somebody who willy-nilly criticises the judiciary. He holds the judiciary in great respect. He's a proper lawyer. He fulfils the role of Lord Chancellor in the way it used to be filled and attaches great importance to that. For him to criticise it is quite a statement.
Yes, he'll be very careful because previous Lord Chancellors, I mean, there was sort of Liz Truss at one point, got herself in a politically quite a difficult situation between the judges on the one hand and Downing Street demanding she denounce them on the other. Now, Alex Chalk temperamentally would be someone who would not want to offend the judiciary, who will want to get on well with them, who will want to build bridges. So for him to raise an eyebrow in print, which is what he was doing, I thought was quite significant.
Nigel, surely we should all be equal in front of the law, and sentences, therefore, should be equal depending on what you've done, not on where you've come from.
Well, it rather depends on each individual, doesn't it? Because if you are in a position of trust, say you're a police officer, you're likely to get a greater sentence for stealing or something like that than an ordinary person. On the other hand, that mitigations have been used in court for ages. So all this is doing is sort of codifying a bit more the mitigations. And so I think it goes back to New Labour's tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. If you're going to deal with crime, you deal with it as a whole. So if people from disadvantaged backgrounds are more likely to be criminalised, that you've got to deal with.
But not surely by giving them lower sentences. That may be at an earlier stage that you may be needing to look at what they're being taught in schools, why they think a life of crime is a reasonable way to go down, whether they're given proper care, particularly as a lot of people who go into prison have been in the care of the state. There are those sorts of issues. But that when you are up before the judge, you've been found guilty of a serious crime, should you really say, well, you had a difficult upbringing, therefore we won't send you to prison?
No, not that you won't send them to prison. I mean, what we're talking about is changing sentencing around depending on a variety of factors. So you've mentioned an adult, your parents being in prison, say, that would be a factor. You've got people who are 50% of prisoners are only functionally literate. There's a whole host of things, reasons why they're more likely to turn to crime than other people.
I think Nigel makes a very fair point that you want to make sure that you are educating people properly, and then you might reduce crime because you won't have so many functionally illiterate people for whom life is inevitably going to be harder. But that there are people who are functionally illiterate who manage to make perfectly respectable lives.
Of course, it is the case that at the moment the courts do take circumstances into account. I mean, take the case of a woman who has assaulted someone she's living with. If that person is violent and has been violent towards the woman, the court will take that into account. Court's always taking circumstances into account. But there's also another principle you've got to weigh, which is that we're all equal before the law. And all other things being equal, you want to give people the same sentences for the same crime and not be too concerned if they're not special circumstances about their background.
And special circumstances have to be very special, that they can't just be you went to university, therefore the fact that you hit somebody on the nose is more serious than somebody who didn't get to university.
There's also another issue, which is that if one is, just to take the example that is in this particular report, if someone is up in court with a deprived background and they're given a lesser sentence simply for that fact, what about the person from a deprived background who hasn't committed any crime?
And it does seem to me that this new Lord Chief Justice is going for quite a lot of lefty causes straight away. First of all, she intervened on the Garrick Club, which is none of her business. Then she's not so keen on jury trial to increase the power of judges. And now she wants to do a socio-economically based prison sentence guideline. Is the judiciary becoming politicised?
No, I don't think so. And I think that what she's actually doing is looking at the whole of criminal justice in the round. And that's my point about it. If you don't take in
I'm going
all
to
the
do a
various
cheap
factors.
tabloid trick
Okay,
and
go
say
ahead.
lefty journalist backs lefty Lord Chief Justice, but that may be very unfair.